The NFL draft is always my favorite part of the NFL process. I don't watch the NFL all too much. My favorite team is the Seahawks, and I live in the Northeast, so I only get to watch about 4 or 3 games a year when they play on prime time. And so that kind of makes it that I don't watch the NFL all too much. So considering the fact that my favorite part of the NFL experience is the NFL draft and everything leading up to it, today I will be talking about my top 5 quarterbacks in this 2026 NFL draft. Number 5, Oklahoma quarterback John Mateer. John Mateer started off the season really hot, and he just kind of he got injured. John Mateer got injured and then came back, threw 3 interceptions against Texas. But I have a feeling that the injury is contributing a large part to that, and I don't think that's going to be a problem for him all too much this season. And honestly, a reason that I'm pretty high on Mateer is because of Cam Ward, right? Cam Ward went to Incarnate Ward before he went to Wazoo, and then transferred up to Miami and became the top pick in the NFL draft. And I think John Mateer kind of shows that same level of competing at any level, right? John Mateer had that 3 interception game against Texas right after the injury, and that doesn't define him as a player. His total stats on the season passing, if you exclude that game, is 8 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Plus, when then you add that game, which he was right fresh off of an injury to, I believe, his hand, so a impactful injury for a quarterback, fresh off of an injury, had a bad game, which will end up killing a lot of his stats and will probably kill his Heisman hopes and his Heisman campaign. But he's big enough. He's 6'1", 223 pounds, or somewhere around that range. And he's super fast, super athletic, and I think he's just a good prospect. I think he'll probably go day 2, maybe sneak into day 1 if he bounces back in this season and proves that he's resilient and proves that he is an elite quarterback. But right now, I don't have him going day 1. Number 4 is South Carolina quarterback Lanorris Sellers. While I don't think he is one of the best players in this draft, I don't think he's one of the best quarterbacks in college football, I think that he is one of the best prospects in this draft. Just because he's big, prototypical size, super fast, cannon of an arm, and he's young, right? So that's a prospect that is very intriguing to draft, kind of the Anthony Richardson effect, where Anthony Richardson didn't even play that well. Lanorris Sellers played a lot better in college and has played a lot better in college than Anthony Richardson did. So it's a lot of the Anthony Richardson effect, though, where it's you get the guy in the building, and if you believe that you can develop him to be something better than the more polished prospect or the player who performed better in college, Will Levis in that case, in that draft class, then you can draft him, right? If you think Lanorris Sellers is going to be better, that you could develop him because you have more time with him than a guy like Carson Beck or a guy like Ty Simpson, who just doesn't have the same size. It's only 6'1", and it's a different 6'1" than a guy like John Mateer, because John Mateer is very mobile, very fast. Ty Simpson doesn't really have that. He's a very pocket passer. An elite pocket passer. I actually have him as my number 3 quarterback in this draft class, and I think he's going to go round 1. But I think that if you spend the same amount of time developing each prospect, Sellers has a lot more potential to be that incredible quarterback who is stand out and is like, how did this guy fall to the late first round when a guy like Ty Simpson or Fernando Mendoza, who is older as a prospect and doesn't necessarily have the exact same potential as a guy like Lanorris Sellers, how did he go below him? That's the outcome that you're hoping for if he is this developmental prospect and you end up developing him well. Just for the potential reasons, that's why I have Lanorris Sellers as my number 4 quarterback. Number 3 is Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson. He has 17 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, around that high 1,000s, 2,000 yard mark. Very talented quarterback. I did not expect Ty Simpson to be this good when I was going into this season, but he clearly is this good. So he's climbed up here where I think that, say you're the Rams, where you have Matt Stafford, who's an elite quarterback still at his old age, but you want to look towards the future after Matt Stafford. Stafford is high 30s. I think he's like 39. There has to be a future after Matt Stafford. And you see with kind of the Packers, they draft Jordan Love as Aaron Rodgers is fading out. Not even as he's fading, because he proceeds to win, I think, 1 or 2 MVPs after they drafted Jordan Love. But as Aaron Rodgers is getting up there in age, you draft Jordan Love. He develops behind a Hall of Fame quarterback, and he takes over when Rodgers leaves. And he is not as good as Rodgers so far, but he is still a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. At least he's up in that range. So I think the Rams could end up trying to do a similar thing. They haven't. I had them doing a similar thing for the past couple of years, actually, yet they've kind of defied my predictions in this time. I actually, preseason, if I was to do a mock draft, I would have Drew Aller going around the 20 range to the LA Rams. But that's just not going to happen. You could take Aller. If you really believe in Drew Aller as a prospect, he hasn't performed very well, and I am a biased Penn State fan, as you can see that KJ Hamler signed jersey in the background. But it's obviously blurry because I have my camera set up like this. But if you really believe in Drew Aller as a prospect, you could take him in that late third, fourth, fifth round range, because he is a prototype quarterback. He's mobile. He's 6'5", 235 pounds, or like 240 pounds, cannon of an arm. He's actually pretty accurate, other than like what the narratives will say. I just don't think he's playing in a correct quarterback system, or played, because he's now injured and now for the season. I don't think that he made the great decisions, but that's something that you can learn. That's something you can learn sitting behind a Hall of Fame quarterback for a year or two, even if Matt Stafford doesn't retire after next season or this season, which I don't think he'll retire after this season. So I think that Drew Aller could be a very possible option, and that's actually a similar thing to what I think Ty Simpson's going to do. I kind of went off on a tangent about Drew Aller, but I am a Penn State fan, even though I'm wearing a Rutgers t-shirt. I'm a Penn State fan. But back to Ty Simpson, I just think he's a really great quarterback. He's a little bit undersized at 6'1", and as I said earlier, he's not the same kind of 6'1" as John Mateer, because John Mateer is very fast and very mobile. But there are so many undersized, and he's not even that undersized, but there are so many not huge quarterbacks in the NFL who are really good and really elite. So I think a team like the Rams, if they think that Stafford is going to slow down in the next couple of years, or he's going to consider retiring in the next couple of years, I do think Ty Simpson could be a good move to prepare for the future, especially if he falls into the second round, which I don't think he will. Now, number 2 in this draft class, according to me, is Fernando Mendoza, right? Comes in from Cal, I believe, to Indiana, following Curtis Rourke going to the NFL. And he has just been playing out of his mind, leading this Indiana team to a great record so far. They're undefeated. They're the number 2 team in the country, and they have been taking care of business every game. They're going to probably have a guaranteed win against Penn State at Penn State soon, which, as you're going into the season and you're expecting this to be a very hard-fought battle, but it likely will not. They just absolutely wiped the floor with UCLA, who actually beat Penn State earlier in the season, and in a lot of ways caused this whole downfall, right? I still trace it back to Oregon, but I think UCLA really put the nail in the coffin. Then you go lose to Northwestern, and you lose to Iowa. Now you've lost 4 games in a row, and the season's over. Your quarterback's injured. You have Ethan Grunkmeyer, and who I hope that he develops into something, but I doubt it. right? He's not been playing well at all. So, yeah, but Fernando Mendoza is a stellar player. He's prototypical size, 6'5", 225 pounds. He is not a scrambling quarterback by any means. He's not John Mateer, not Lanorris Sellers, but he does have a little bit of mobility. He has 24 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, I think around 1,900 yards on the season. He's been playing incredibly, right? And he's kind of been part of the light with this team. It's Kurt Cignetti and it's Fernando Mendoza who have really propelled this team to be a true national championship contender. I think that they should be the number 1 team in the country because who has Ohio State really beaten outside of like Texas? They came into the season number 1 in the country, but they've kind of shown that they're not number 1 in the country at all. Right? That's like playing Clemson or Penn State, number 1 in the country. Obviously, those teams have fallen off even more than Texas has. But yeah, so Ohio State is obviously great. I think Indiana with Fernando Mendoza should be number 1. And if you put Fernando Mendoza into a situation where he has weapons, where he does have a strong run game, and he could succeed right away. Or he could sit a year behind a guy like Matt Stafford, blah, 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 but they're not going to be in a position to take him. He's going to go top 10. He's going to come down to the end of the season where he's up there at close to the number 1 quarterback in the country from a draft perspective and from a college football perspective where he's just so good. And before we do our number 1 quarterback in the country, we are going to do some honorable mentions for the top spots. I think a guy like Drew Aller, prototypical size, speed is good, arm strength is incredible, accuracy is solid, right? Just not been put in the greatest situation from the offensive coordinator and the development at Penn State. But obviously coming out of high school, he was the number 1 quarterback in the country, chose Penn State, really hasn't worked that well. I mean, he won 2 playoff games last year. He made the Big Ten championship. He's had team success, but he just hasn't had the individual success to make himself a top, like, first-round prospect. I think scoop him up late 3rd, early 4th, potentially 5th. I think a lot of people currently are thinking he's going to go UDFA. He's not going UDFA. Has he played where he should be a 3rd-round pick? No. He has played this year. He might have played last year and the year before. I think he played where he should be like a 3rd-round pick. But this year, he has not played like he should be a 3rd-round pick. He does, though, have the potential to be a guy who we look at in 5 years as, oh my God, this guy's, like, he was a 3rd-round pick? He's so good. But a lot of the times these quarterbacks don't work out. And there's a chance that Drew Aller doesn't in the NFL, and I have to kind of accept that as a Penn State fan. Then honorable mention number 2, we're going Carson Beck, right? This is a guy who on my podcast last year, first episode ever, I came prepared with some hot takes. And I said, hey, I watched 20 minutes of pure throwing plays, right? Carson Beck throwing plays. Incompletions, completions. It was not a highlight tape. It was every single throw from his season before his last season at Georgia. His like 2023 season at Georgia. I walked away from that being like, yeah, everyone has him number 1 overall. I think he's not that good. Nothing really stood out to me from Carson Beck. And I think this year he has really shown that at times, he has shown that he is a great quarterback. But at times, like the Louisville game, that I think will be killing his draft stock and killing his Heisman opportunity, he showed that he's just not good. He threw 4 interceptions against an unranked Louisville team. Yes, Louisville was 4-1, I think, at the time. Now, after that game, 5-1. They might be 6-1 now. But an unranked Louisville team as the number 1 or 2 team in the country. I think they peaked at number 2, and they lost at home, right? So that's an insane loss if you are Carson Beck. That's going to kill his stock. Is it going to kill his stock where he's not going to go drafted? No chance. he'll be drafted. He might be also in that Drew Aller prototype quarterback, 3rd round, 4th round, 5th round selection kind of range. But I don't think he'll go as high as Aller because Aller's 21 or 22. Beck is 23, right? You have less time to develop Beck, and they've played at a similar level. And Aller's played against better competition this year, at least. He played against better competition. And you can argue that he played against a similar level of competition at Penn State as I wouldn't, because the pass defenses are better in the SEC. I think the Big Ten has better teams at the top, but I think all around, week in, week out, SEC is probably harder. But I think they could be in the similar range, where they are 3rd round, late 2nd, potentially, but probably late 3rd round, and then 4th round, 5th round. But that's kind of the peak for them. Now that we've talked about the honorable mentions, we're going to get into the number 1 quarterback in this 2026 draft class, and that is Dante Moore, right? I've watched this guy in person play against Rutgers, my second favorite team, and he absolutely diced us up. I also watched the Penn State game live, and I watched my team's season start the decline, and he also diced us up. Dante Moore is just such a good player because he's so dynamic. He's a strong arm. He's accurate. Makes the right decisions. It's hard to get him in the backfield because he's able to wiggle out of ways. When you think you have him done, he just gets out of it in a weird way, and it's so annoying to watch as a team that's rooting for the team that he's playing. But I can only imagine if you're rooting unbiased, because I haven't watched Dante Moore film unbiased. I haven't watched him play against a team like Washington. I don't even know if they've played Washington, but I haven't watched him play against a team that I wasn't rooting for. So it was definitely annoying to watch him play because he was so good. And I think that shows how great he is, that just watching him play from an opposing fan's perspective was enough to get me actually angry, which I genuinely applaud him for. And then I briefly met him after the game. Seemed like a very nice guy. Was talking to people, talking to Rutgers fans, and not chirping them, talking to Rutgers fans, talking to Oregon fans, and signing stuff for Oregon fans, blah, blah, blah. Seemed like a nice guy. So it's hard to it was hard to be I hate him after seeing him interact with people. But man, did I hate watching him dice up my 2 favorite teams. So, I mean, just an incredible player. There's not much I can really say, but because he's so good that it's not even comprehensible to me. He's definitely the best quarterback I've witnessed, not because of, at least at the college level, because there are Sam Darnold, guy went number 3 overall, Rose Bowl 2017 against Penn State. That he was an incredible quarterback, but nothing about him in that game really shocked me, right? Because he is a pocket passer. A guy like CJ Stroud at Ohio State playing against Penn State, nothing really shocked me about him. But watching Dante Moore play, it was you see him and he should be tackled, sacked by every reasonable thought, but he's just still up and he's still running, and he finds Jacorian Moore downfield for a friggin' 40-yard gain, and it was insufferable, but it was so insane to watch, and that's why I have him number 1 in this draft board. So that wraps it up. Dante Moore is the number 1 quarterback, in my opinion, in this NFL draft. See ya.